everyone. In this episode, we're delving into a profound conversation with Natali Deftereos, exploring her intense spiritual awakening experience. She shares how she navigated this transformative, very somatic journey without any prior spiritual framework, leading to her personal evolution. And her story unfolds from a time in Shanghai when she was working in the fashion industry with a successful career, and how she navigated the really unexpected physiological symptoms of what she later was able to name a Kundalini awakening. But what really came through with Natali is her profound trust in the process. So for someone who had no spiritual framework within which to understand it and who didn't have any external support, she didn't have a guide, a mentor, a teacher. Nevertheless, she heard this voice within, and she not only learned to hear it, but she had profound trust for it, and it really had me reflecting on, who does that? Would you trust that inner knowing or voice? I suppose to some extent we all do have that trust when it comes down to it, but her story is so incredibly profound because she trusted the only thing that she really had, which was that knowing that this was a normal process and that there was something good coming from it. So I will leave the rest of the story for you to discover in this conversation. Finally, quickly, if you want to work with me personally, there are two options. One is that I have a paid membership community that's hosted on Substack. It is just $10 a month, discounts for buying it for a year up front, and it's an opportunity to meet like-minded peers. Essentially, we join together as a group. We will have monthly calls, and you get access to all my publications, outtakes, and communication with my guests. So that's one opportunity. The other opportunity is a 3-month one-on-one program, which is essentially looking at the evolutionary structure of your life to help you and support you to be the most authentic version of you. We use evolutionary astrology to start, and then we use a lot of different therapeutic tools over 3 months to really support you to become that new version of yourself. All of the links and applications to apply are in the show notes below. Welcome, Natali, to the Shattering Place.
Thank you, Michelle.
So, Natali, I understand that you have lived through a very intense awakening experience, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share this with my audience because it's such a particular and unique experience, and I just feel it's always so different for everyone. And it's so valuable to hear how others have experienced it and what they've navigated. And for you, it was particularly probably shocking and intense because you didn't come to it within any kind of spiritual framework or container.
No.
Quite the opposite. You
Yeah.
came from a totally different world. So yeah, I guess we'll just start there. Really what happened before it happened.
Yeah. So thank you. Essentially, I guess as a result of many, difficult life circumstances and experiences, I was working in Shanghai, kind of reaching the top of my career as a fashion stylist there. But I started experiencing a lot of fatigue and a lot of dizziness, which is very unusual for me because I'd always had enormous energy levels. And so, yeah, I would just experience these dizzy spells, and on some level, I seemed to know that it wasn't a physical thing. It felt like a soul fatigue, an emotional fatigue, and so. Yeah, and no reference for any. I had no spiritual practice. I was meditating. In fact, I rejected all these things, probably because on some level I knew that I actually needed it. I just thought, well, I don't want to go there. And so, in early, I think I went back to South Africa. I was really, really starting to feel tired. And I went back to South Africa. I figured, okay, I just need a little rest. I just need to take a little break. And so I went back to South Africa, which is my home country. And while I was there, and it's interesting, even though I wasn't personally into spiritual work, I had some friends around me because I like to surround myself with interesting people, yogis, a newish friend who just started studying Reiki. And I think I'd heard in conversation about Reiki. And while I was there, I just had this enormous sense that I should go get a Reiki healing. And even though I didn't know exactly what it was like something was
Hmm.
pushing me to go and get this message.
Pushing you, yeah.
Yeah, it was so, and I was quite casual about it. And I just Googled and I found someone, went for a session, and actually nothing really happened. She kind of freaked me out a little bit because her cat was sitting on the table staring into the corner, and she said, "Oh, when that cat's in the corner, I know it's looking at something." And I'm like, "Whoa, lady, like I'm completely new to this world." And I think my body just froze up. And so nothing really happened, but still I had the sense that I had to keep looking. Anyway, I contacted the Reiki Association of South Africa, and they recommended a Reiki master. And I had such resistance before going to see her. I almost didn't want to go. But again, it felt like something was just, you've got to go. I still remember the sensation. And when I arrived at this woman's house, I could feel that this was just another level. And this woman read me like a book. It was a very emotional session. Um, do you want me to go more into the session?
Yeah, I'm curious if she was identifying that did she feel like she was clearing trauma, or did she feel like she was activating something? Like what did you think you were there for, and what did she think you were there for?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because when I sat down and spoke with her, I said, she actually said to me, "Oh, I've been expecting you, and I got some very interesting messages for you." And I just thought, okay. And I didn't know
Mm.
exactly why I was there. As I said, in fact, I actually didn't even know what Reiki was. I thought it was some form of massage, which is very unlike me to even like not research so much. But when I said to her that I had actually seen another healer, but nothing really happened, and so I'd sought someone else out, she looked at me and she said, "Oh, you must have been desperate for healing." And I just said, "No, no, I'm not desperate. I'm not desperate at all." Complete denial.
Hmm.
And she started asking me questions. Um, and it led to the question of, "Do you love yourself?" And I said, "Well, of course I love myself." Then this kind of realization started to sink in, and she made me raise my arms and she said, "Say it." And I couldn't say it. And I just completely, I broke down. It was just,
Mm.
it was so intense. Just complete breakdown. This is before the treatment even started. And so after that, after I'd kind of calmed down a little bit, and she delivered these messages for me, and she pulled some cards, and then we got on the table. And yeah, as soon as she put her hands on my crown chakra, it's like this bolt of energy just flew down my spine, just went down my spine, from my crown down my spine. And I don't think she knew what was really, taking place. And for me, I had no reference as to what should happen in a Reiki session. So I just thought, wow, this is intense, but, I had
Hmm.
no real idea of what was going on. And so, yeah, it was a very emotional session. It was a lot of trauma came up, a lot of release. And so, yeah, I mean, in the moment it felt, yeah, it was a relief to let this go, but it was quite shocking as to how emotional and intense it was.
So you start having these dizzy spells. Was that the first kind of sign something was happening in the body? You're having these dizzy spells
Yeah.
and you go home, and then you feel this impulse to book a healing session without any sense of why or what might happen.
No, just a feeling.
It's crazy because I mean, had you always been like this? Like you have a feeling you trust it? Because that's, yeah, without a framework to without like a spiritual framework or an understanding of healing, just to go, well, I'm having these physical symptoms. I need Reiki. What's Reiki? I'm gonna Google it. It already feels to me like something else has just taken over.
Yeah,
from the very beginning.
yeah, for sure. I think, just as to your question, yeah, I've always kind of followed my intuition and my instincts on things. And so, that's kind of dictated a lot of my life decisions actually. Um,
Mm,
Before I even realized, oh, I'm just following my intuition. It's just, I was always driven by that.
mm,
And so, yeah, it's interesting that I didn't even really, question it more deeply. Oh, what is Reiki? It was just such a strong feeling. And yeah, I agree. Something else was calling the shots, and something else was,
mm.
you know, was taking over at that point. So yeah, there'd always been the intuition, but then this was on another level because it was something I was completely unfamiliar with. Um, yeah,
Yeah. And this session, did it feel like you said something was released, so there was a sense that some past trauma had fallen away to some degree?
yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think even before the session, so when she made me put my hands up in the air and to tell myself that I love myself, that just opened up the floodgates. So it started there. Interestingly, I can't even clearly remember the session aside from the first part where she put her hands on my head. So I know it was very emotional. There was a lot of release, but I don't remember. I don't remember anything beyond that actually.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that bolt of energy that came in through your crown and yeah. Did she have any explanation for that herself? Did she kind of review the session or say, "This is what's happened, Natalie, you're gonna be okay, this is what to expect"? Or was it like you came, you received, and that was it?
Yeah, well, I think I was just in so much shock as to what had been released. I don't remember asking any questions about the energy because I had no reference point, and so I just
No.
that this was part of the session. I think she knew
Mm.
that a powerful session had just taken place. I'm not so sure she was aware of the energy that had just been activated or released, because we didn't discuss it. And it's interesting
Mm.
because I just connected with her recently, and this was 2017. And it would be interesting to circle back to her and say, "Hey, this is what happened in the session." Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then you left the session. So then what happened after that? Did that start a new phase? What happened with the dizziness? Did that continue?
Yeah. So actually, after that session, I uh, it kicked off an enormous purge, and emotional purge and physical purge within my body. I was constantly going to the bathroom. I mean, after the session, I passed out for 5 hours. Um, I just completely, yeah, it completely wiped me out. I was actually, staying with my dad and his partner at the time. And when I walked in, my dad said to me, "You look like you've seen the devil." And I thought, well, maybe I have, but yeah, uh, completely wiped me out. I was exhausted. And then, so
Mm.
these emotional waves, this physical purging, just started. And so I was still in South Africa, still on holiday, and I thought, no, I need to go and be on my own. So I went down to Cape
Mm.
Town just to have some more space for myself. And this process just continued. And so I looked online, as to what was going on, and I found, okay, there's a Reiki, a healing crisis, but it's only supposed to last for, a couple days to a couple weeks max. And for me, it just kept on going. It didn't stop. It got more intense. So anyway, I ended up going back to Shanghai, and it's interesting. My awakening, my Kundalini energy got released in two ways. It actually went in both directions, which is quite unusual. And so when I was back in Shanghai, these symptoms were still going on, and then of course, you start to search for answers. And a friend of mine had started doing. He went to a breathwork session, kind of like a rebirthing breathwork, or the holotropics, so the really intense. And
Hmm.
just felt pulled to go and do a breathwork session. Again, no idea, but uh, he said, "Oh, you'll be surprised at what takes place." And so in the session, I yeah. when I went into this kind of like, it takes you into a certain state, my body just clenched up. My fingers, curled up, and my body just,
Yeah.
I couldn't move, and it just,
Tetany. Yeah, it's called tetany. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think even
Mm.
beyond that, my body just froze, and I
Froze.
just
Yeah.
thought, my God, this is how I've been navigating my way through the world. I realized it in that moment. Anyway,
Mm.
he had these crystals, and he was kind of like pressing on certain parts of the body, and I released so much trauma. And as I released it, I was screaming. It was really intense. This A realization just came across my awareness. This feels ancient. This doesn't even feel like it's mine. And so the energy came up from the bottom up through my crown. Yeah. So it went up that way. And it was such a beautiful release though, but it was so intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So through these two processes,
Okay.
yeah, I got opened in both ways.
Both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And your lived experience as you're going through this is you're clearing out through your digestion,
Yeah.
and there's some dizziness, and you had started looking up kind of awakening, and you were starting to recognize there was something happening through you. But what was your understanding of it at that stage? What was your sense of it?
At that point in time, so I didn't actually know that I was having an awakening. I just thought I was just detoxing, or actually, I had no idea. But after that breathwork session, because my body actually started vibrating, and then my sensitivity increased, and that's when it really started to get kind of trippy. And maybe after a month or so, I had to Google my symptoms again, and you were having a spiritual awakening. That's what it came out with.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a Kundalini awakening. Yeah. I mean,
Well,
and it's different. No?
yeah, no, it didn't say Kundalini. It took me years to
Oh.
figure out it was a Kundalini awakening, actually. It's bizarre. Yeah, I recognize as having a spiritual awakening, but I didn't know there was a difference. I had
Yeah.
no time. How can you
Yeah.
find out about these things? You just, yeah,
Yeah. How do you know? Yeah. It's a curiosity, isn't it? Because I mean, awakening can mean so many different things. And, essentially, I always just try to simplify it by saying an experience of through your experience, like an experiential knowing that you are more than your body, that there's an aspect of you that's a soul or eternal, and a gradual shifting away from a life led from your ego, your mind, the part of you, the conditioned self, the part of you that's a personality in a life, in a context, gradual shifting away into living from that sense of I am a being having a human experience. I am a soul, just as a general kind of definition. But within that, it takes so many different forms. I mean, you
it
can
does.
have an awakening, when you become a mother. You can have an awakening when you go through grief because someone you love has died. You
Yeah,
can But this kind of awakening, which I guess is often called that Kundalini awakening, is very somatic. There's a lot of physical activation. Not everyone experiences. Some people I know just have sudden non-dual states. The samadhi experience.
yeah,
Like you, and I've shared a bit about my story to you privately, but I also had a very physical. It was a very somatic. It was a very of the body, and it's kind of frightening because, yeah, well, I mean, you couldn't even find the word Kundalini. So when you were reading about spiritual awakening, did it mention physiological symptoms, or were you just filling that in as part of a normal thing?
yeah. It did mention physiological symptoms. What I didn't realize was that, yeah, for other awakening states, it's they don't typically last for years.
Yeah.
So that's why I was kind of missing that piece of the puzzle. A lot of what I was experiencing was, on par with what you would have with an awakening, and whatever, however that expressed. But with the Kundalini, it's constant. It takes you years and years and years to integrate. And so, yeah, it was quite disorienting, confusing. I had to really, yeah, lean into what was going on, even though I battled it for a while. It's interesting because the guidance that I got, again, internally from my higher self, or whatever intelligence was guiding me, I reached a point because I was battling, I was trying to fix it, and it had just said to me, "Surrender." And when I just kind of gave into that energy, because it was, the more you battle the energy, the more it combusts, the more you're creating resistance within your body. Once
Mm.
I surrendered, I just felt so much peace, and I still remember it actually. Yeah.
So incredible to me that you had this guidance with you the whole time. You've not come from a tradition or a framework, and yet but you said that you always had this trust, to trust your instincts. And then at what point did you start to feel like the presence of something guiding you enough to kind of, yeah, let go?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, once I had that second kind of release, and I mean, it sounds insane, but my crown is just vibrating, the body's vibrating. I was connected to
Mm.
and subconsciousness. And so I started getting all these insights, these downloads, and it was very peaceful and it was very beautiful. And somehow I just trusted that because it felt
Yeah.
such a good place to be. I was like, wow, whatever this is, I feel good there. And so I'm going to trust that. It was almost like something was just kind of cradling me for a good few years, actually. So you're just so tuned in. You feel, I was so supported. Um, and it was so loving despite the chaos that's kind of unfolding emotionally and within your body,
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's just, and then once I surrendered and really just gave into that, there was just another level of just, it was quite blissful actually. On a consciousness state, it was super,
Mm.
it was like this heaven and hell paradox, This was very peaceful, expansive, wow, connected to everything. And then the human existence, just complete chaos.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. It's I know I want to, you probably do too, want to make sense of it, or at some stage maybe you did want to make sense of it. And I'm curious about, but I was going to say the brain isn't very good at making sense of things that are happening at this level, right? Because I'm not sure our brain is wired to even understand
Yeah.
something that's so multidimensional. But I'm just curious, if you're in it, did you have a theory? Did you feel like I'm being cleared out, something's being healed through me, I'm being rewired? Did you have a metaphor? How did you, or did you just literally go, whatever, I feel good, so
No, it's really interesting that you say that. I started getting a lot of downloads actually. Almost
Mm.
almost speaking to me. Yeah, your body's being rewired, it's being recalibrated, your nervous system is being recalibrated. Your body is like a tuning fork and you're being retuned. You're it was definitely a lot of information about the purge, you're being cleared out. And so I think with that understanding, I just realized I had to be really patient, and just let the body do what it needed to do. And unfortunately, at that time, I guess, I didn't understand it was a Kundalini awakening, and I probably would have been, I studied some energy medicine modalities, and that actually, it was interesting to do that, but it actually brought more chaos to the situation. And what I discovered, and it took me years to figure this out, was that I actually just needed to ground and support the process and not try and fix it. And it literally took me
Mhm.
years. But yeah,
How many years did this go on?
I mean, it's still, I'm still integrating it, but
Sorry.
so I'm in year
Yeah.
9 now, but very intensely for 5 years, almost nonstop, day and night in your dreams, daytime dreams. It's pretty relentless, actually. And so that was the really, the very deep ancestral stuff that it was clearing out. Um, how your
Mm.
body just goes through such a shock. I stopped drinking alcohol. I was vegetarian for 3 years. It was just, like this. It's just no desire to drink. So you get a lot of, guidance as to what you should do. But yeah, 5 years of really, really intense. And then I got the message, okay, you need to start to ground. But it's interesting because when you start to ground, your connection starts to weaken a little bit.
Mm.
I went through a lot of grief, and I think it's quite common actually, because you don't feel so supported as you kind of come more into the human form and the human experience in 3D. So yeah, so it's difficult to lose that, but also it's necessary just for survival because you cannot just
Survival, yeah.
cannot stay in the 5D, you cannot stay in the ether. You have to function, and it's very disorienting. I think you've probably experienced it yourself. Just to navigate the mundane was
Yeah.
it's only because I was so well established in China.
Cool.
I had everything set up that I could kind of just go through the motions, and I would earn enough money and just I could take a couple months off and go vibrate on my sofa listening to binaural music. Seriously. Yeah, that's what I did.
It's just, yeah, crazy. So what I'm hearing is a experience of you this ascension, awakening, kind of through, connection with consciousness, connection, kind of an upward connection, and then there's this experience of then landing back in your body. And I know I've experienced that, and I think it's a fairly common thing. It's something Adyashanti, the Buddhist teacher, has spoken about. His student Bonnie Greenwell, two people whose books I read a lot of. Bonnie Greenwell's written a lot about Kundalini. I think you said you'd read all of those. And she talks about, and they both speak about, and that was my first experience of trying to understand that outside of my own body, how there's this expansion outwards, and then that is the awakening, the realization, if you will, and then everything has to be integrated back into form. So there's this descent back into the body.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all kind of metaphorical, but also it's very it's very real and tangible,
It's
and
very
I've never heard anyone
yeah,
describe how you've described it. I never thought of it that way. But yeah, you lose some of that connection to bliss and connection to that non-dual. I mean, you can still dip in and out of it, but it's, as you say, required for functioning. And I think yeah, everyone when I've read their experiences, there is this inevitable return to the body, life embodied, but a changed, but then the body is somehow rewired and it's changed. The vessel has changed.
vessels change. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at some point did you, or at which point did you get the download that some of the clearing was ancestral clearing? I'm very, very curious about this piece of it, because that's kind of my theory, is that we sometimes, we incarnate into a body, and certain individuals do operate in that space of clearing the lineage patterns. Like maybe there's been a lot of trauma in a bloodline and we're clearing that. I don't know why we need to, but it seems to be a thing that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think in the early stages, it's like the insights that I got was really clearing up the old heavy stuff that was ancestral. I can't really say because it was
Mhm.
such a intense state. I can't really clearly say, oh yeah, that was specifically ancestral, but it was just old. And so I would say that is how I would
Mhm.
ancestral. It was just, in that breathwork session, this feels ancient. That felt ancestral. I
Mm.
was like, this doesn't feel like it belongs to me. And I think also going through the process, I just thought, my God, okay, I've experienced some stuff in this lifetime, but this does not belong to me for sure. This is, from other generations. And so I think that's how I kind of joined the dots in that way. So I don't remember getting
Mm.
the downloads, but it was more the sense of this is a lot, you know,
Yeah.
this is a lot that I'm clearing out.
Yeah. Did it come with memories as well, or was it just like somatic
No,
symptoms,
no memories, just
energy?
somatic, just a lot of, it was very heavy, very painful. I thought, wow, whoever went through this must have suffered, you know.
Really? So was there emotional pain as well that came with it? Like a lot of
Yeah.
crying and yeah.
Yeah, crying.
Yeah.
It's like this energy, like these energetic storms just go through your body,
Go through, yeah.
and they just whip through your
Mm.
body. And it just, it's relentless. It just doesn't stop, day and night. I think that's the one thing. I think at one point in time, I also just realized, I couldn't fix it and I needed to have a marathon approach. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint or even like a long distance event. Uh,
Mm.
But yeah, emotions, energetics, just, yeah, you get cleared from every angle. It leaves no stone unturned.
Yeah, and it's not you. I mean, and it just happens through you, doesn't it? I mean, I remember once someone said to me after my experience, "Well, did you ask for it?" And I can honestly say, I had a slightly different story. I was wanting some kind of deepening. I was looking for a community, but with this kind of experience, it really chooses you. You don't choose it. It's the
Yeah,
force of nature.
yeah.
It's just like, okay, it's time to clear you out and rewire you, and
It's
here we go.
time.
And that just,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have, and it's completely beyond control. Um, yeah, and I can't imagine how, I mean, you have this beautiful connection to some kind of guidance, so that's great that that came in, but was there a loneliness that came in? Like what is happening and who can I talk to about this and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's interesting, because it's interesting. There are a few things in this equation. There's actually, I don't know if you're into human design at all, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so,
I am.
yeah, so my design is actually a 6-2, so the role model hermit. And
Yeah.
so, it was, and kind of like a genius protective mechanism for me to withdraw and just go
Mm,
into the process. But I
mm,
actually, apart from doing my work, I'd say for at least 2, maybe 3 years, I withdrew from my social circles where I didn't see friends. The only person that I really saw, I had a cleaner that would come 3 times a week. I certainly didn't need a cleaner 3 times a week, but she was kinda like my tether, and she was always so happy. And no, I got very lonely, because it's brutal, and how do you explain, at that point, I still didn't fully understand what was going on, even though I trusted the process. I had no one to talk to about it. Um, Although later on I did meet someone who was also going through an awakening, so we, would hang out and go through this process together. But the initial stages, it was, yeah, very lonely, very isolating.
yeah.
Friends were quite concerned because I just didn't want to see anyone. I just disappeared. Um,
Mm.
and so, and that kind of shifted later on. People started to like pull me out a little bit. But even my cleaner, the one day, she, she must have seen the state that I was in, and she said, "Today I'm not going to clean." This is in Chinese, of course. She said,
Yeah.
"I'm going to take you somewhere." And we got into her scooter, and she took me to the botanical gardens.
Oh,
And she just sat with me for the hour. I know it's actually quite emotional to think about it, because she must have seen me and she's like, "I think we just need to be here for a little while," which is pretty,
oh,
yeah, So it's interesting. I would have these kind of like little fairies come and drop in
yeah.
just to keep me going just for a little bit. And that's actually been also parts of my journey as well. I've been, quite isolated. Even I'm living in Shanghai, which is like so full of people, but
Mm.
the process is so intense and it's, you can't explain it. It's so overwhelming. And, even when I would go to work, I would be thinking, how could people not see that I'm completely losing my mind right now, or I'm on the edge. But somehow I, kept it together. But it's interesting, yeah, because so I did it without a guide, but it's almost also like my human design requires for me to go through that process on my own to withdraw, to like fully experience it without guidance. Even though I did kind of, seek some kind of help, it didn't come for me, and that was part of my process, I think. But yeah,
Mm.
it was very lonely, and even still, when I have to withdraw, when the energy flares up, yeah, it's still a challenge to manage at times for sure, but easier
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
And you had some discernment throughout, because at no point have I heard you say, I was clearly thought I was having a mental breakdown. It was, I was going into psychosis. Like your guidance or whatever was happening was solid enough that you had faith in the process? You had faith that there was something beneficial happening ultimately, or what was your understanding at that point? So you're in Shanghai, you're resting a lot, you're working sporadically, the cleaner's coming by. What did you think this was for? Like, why? Why me? Why? What's happening? Why?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely recognize that, um, in this life, I've also had some trauma too, for sure. And so I just figured, well, my soul, my energetic body has just reached capacity, and that if I'd continued going on the path I was going on, I would have certainly, gone into some sort of chronic health, just had really major burnout, and that, this intelligence kind of overrode whatever was going on. But I will say, no, psychologically, I was pushed to the brink again and again and again. And I think particularly when, you go through this ego death, when you lose your identity, it's just stripped. And this is gonna sound brutal, but there was one day where I was literally like on my knees, like on the floor, and I just said, no more. I can't take any more. And it's almost like someone took a boot and put it in the back of my neck and said, "No, you're not humble enough yet." Like, yeah, you need to get a little.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds brutal, and it was, but also probably true. You're not humble enough yet. So, yeah, I did have the discernment. I think I've got maybe the internal discipline and some sense of like pride, I'm not gonna let this beat me. But no, I was pushed to the edge, for years. It's y well, everything just, is disintegrated. Your beliefs, who you think you are. I would look in the mirror and just think, "I have no idea who I am. No idea." And so everything
Yeah.
stripped away, and that is quite scary. And
It can be so incredibly brutal. I mean, it's not for everyone. People have different experiences, but I think there is always a time of this kind of incredible crisis, like the tower and the tarot cards. Like, I don't think you can go through it without some element of that, but I think the intensity, severity, and duration and exactly how that manifests can differ greatly amongst people. And I'm curious about this because I also had it felt very violent. It didn't go on for 5 years. I'm like, kudos to you. I'm not sure I could have, with the children and all of the complexity, like, wow. But there was this, it felt incredibly, just on the body, pretty intense and violent. And I wonder, I mean, we can only speculate what, right? I don't know if we will know why, but yes, why? Why? Is it just like you said, you felt like you hit a wall and it was like it had to change. It had to, you just reached capacity. Is that the reason? Or is it that you reached capacity and also your guidance knows that you can do this, that you can sort this out in this lifetime? Because I feel like it could take many lifetimes, but more gentle.
yeah.
But it just happened all at once. I mean, 5 years, 6 years, that seems, horrendously long, but
Yeah.
it's still in one lifetime, right? It's
Yeah, and
not.
yeah, I feel like I've lived 100 lifetimes in this one alone. Well, it's interesting because I think, yeah, and certainly not everyone has had such an intense experience, but of course some people have. But I'm also in this group where people have had, more gentle awakenings, and that's probably a result of the work they've done in previous lifetimes,
Mm,
and what they've experienced in this lifetime. Because of course, if your body is clear of
mm,
of trauma, then, if you have the awakening, it doesn't have to burn through so much stuff, right? So you're gonna have an easier ride, which wasn't the case for me. Um, but
mm.
definitely it's interesting because again, going into the human design, like I have a very specific channel, which is the channel of initiation. And so it's like going through these shocks.
Mm.
And so I think that's also why it was so intense. But also having that channel allows me to have the resilience to go through this process. So it's like, yeah, it's intense, but you can handle it. You
You can handle it.
handle it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. And where are you at now with it? What's happening now? How is it tapered off? How is it changing, morphing? How has your life changed?
Yeah, so it's interesting because after I left China, and I think, I had my apartment there and it was a very stable existence for me. And I think that's the thing. If you're going through this, you really want to have points of stability and groundedness. But once I left China, because it was during COVID and it just became unbearable to be there. And I had no exit plan, and I just felt like I was going into kind of a dark hole, and I thought, "If I don't leave, it's gonna be very hard to pull myself out." So I actually, for the last 4 years, had, some very a lot of, like, instability and moving around. Also, I think part of my experience, because it's the too is to experience things, it's to live things. So it was actually extremely challenging. But since I came to Portugal, things have settled a lot more for me. And I think I'm also coming towards the end of this, coming off the roof, as they say. And the energy still flares up now and again. Last week I had quite an intense episode, but for the most part, it's quite manageable as long as I'm, stable. I'm looking after myself. It's manageable. I still have this connection. It's not like it was in the early days, but the channel is ever, ever present. There's a lot of energy and electricity moving around in my body, but
Hmm.
more or less I know how to manage it, and I can um,
Yeah.
move through life. But before, it wasn't, I don't know if you experienced this, but it was just an absolute challenge. Yeah, as I said, just to deal with the mundane, just to deal with simple decisions like opening a bank account, renting. It's like you just it's bizarre actually. So finally, starting to come to
Yeah.
a where I can deal with these kind of decisions again. Whereas before it was just almost impossible. I could do it in China because I was set up, and so I didn't have to think about it. But then you're moving country and then moving country again, and it's just
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm very, very grateful to my partner for how he held me through this, not even having a framework for it, not really understanding it. And I'm sure to this day he's baffled by the whole thing. But there was a period of about a year where I just was incapacitated really,
Yeah.
and um I wasn't working hardly. I was crying a lot. I was feeling all the things, and
Yeah.
he just kind of kept the wheels from falling off the bus. And it makes me emotional to think of it because, poor him to not understand, like, is my partner having a psychotic breakdown? She's pretty sure it's a good thing and it is awakening, but it's horrendous. And I think also from people looking outside of it who don't, who are not experiencing it themselves, it's easy to see someone's just lost it. It's like they're in crisis, there's all this happening. Because also for me, I don't know about for you, but my outer world was mirroring my inner world. So there was a lot of loss,
Yeah.
a lot of things falling away. Friendships
Oh,
fell away
oh,
and
yeah.
money disappeared. I lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
I lost friends.
Yeah.
I just felt like I lost everything, and there's a lot of grief there, and I was not in touch with people. I couldn't explain to them. I did have a spiritual teacher that I worked with, every few weeks. I had a group, but it still felt very much. I was very much alone. You could kind of tell people pieces of it, but you have to live it.
So,
And I look back and I think, wow, I can understand how people from the outside would be like, wow, she's just like constantly in crisis, this woman.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I would say, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I really resonate with, yeah, I've lost almost everything. It's just, you lose everything. Everything gets lost, taken away, and there's a deep grief in that. And then, yeah, the relationships,
so much grief.
yeah, relationships falling away. Um, yeah, it's a very intense process. So I really, really resonate with that. Um,
Yeah,
it's a really difficult thing to go through, and amazing that you had. kind of like the steady point. I think that's so beautiful, it's like this acceptance. Okay, you're going through something. I'm going to be there for you. Wow. I think actually what I'm experienced, and I'll share something with you that happened for me the other evening that made me think of what you shared is I received actually quite a lot of judgment from some spiritual people who didn't fully understand what I was going through. And yet I've actually received some of the best support just from grounded, kind people who have just been there for me. I think the other night I had someone hold me through what I was going through, and it's the first time I've ever experienced that, just a very grounded, strong man. And it was just the first time in the whole process that I've had that, it didn't, it was just remarkable and
Yeah,
just,
it does make a difference. Yeah. And I love what you say because it's like I hear that piece that spiritual people, I have had spiritual people leave my life. And, I have many theories around it, but one thing I remember hearing an interview with Lee Harris last year, Lee Harris channels and
yeah,
so on. And he said in an interview, I have a lot of friends who aren't spiritual. He said, I'd much rather have friendships with people who are just really good people, they're kind, they're supportive, they're interested. Because what does spiritual mean? Like, I don't think it even means anything, to be honest.
yeah,
Maybe you like to read these things, maybe you have a curiosity, but this is not that.
no,
This is not that. And really, yeah, there's so much to be said for having some grounding around you. And thank God, because I had a house full of children and, I had a lot of practicalities to
yeah,
attend to and was really not in a state. And that's fluctuated a lot, and I have periods. I've been navigating a really difficult thing at the moment with housing. I'm in a housing situation. And, there are moments when I feel like, oh God, I'm not coping. And it still feels like I'm in the same process because now whenever I feel that the outer world is bringing me an experience of not coping or change or suddenness, I feel that activation again. And it's a recognition that this is another level of clearing. And
yeah,
the vibration can come on really strongly again. And, in sometimes in the worst of it, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and have these like really deep non-dual experiences where I am different people, not just myself. And
yeah.
a couple times I've got up to feed the cat at 3 a.m. and I'm like, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I think I'm just feeding the cat, but that's all I know. I know that I'm feeding the cat, but I'm not sure if I am the man in the bed or the boy I think is my son in the next room. And it's really crazy. It's like crazy.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. That's
Something's cracking.
that's why the
Yeah.
cat is there. It's like just to keep you
Yeah.
present, right? Like, okay, yeah, I'm here.
Probably.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, I really hear you. It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're gifts. What have you found? Are there always gifts? Like, what have you found? I mean, gosh, we're focusing on there is the bliss, there are the good things. There's so many good things. The experience can be brutal, but did you have gifts that then came online? I mean, you talk about the connection, the vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say, okay, so for me, the biggest gift is, I mean, I'll get into the psychic gifts a bit later, but the biggest gift is to really love myself and value myself so
I
much.
love that. Yeah.
That's it. It's like, wow. And it's taken me years, because you go through the clearing and now I'm just starting to really put together the pieces. Wow. You're amazing, You deserve so much love. I love that is the biggest gift, like this love and this
Incredible.
this it's like my heart, which was so closed for so long, and then of course you go through so much and then I was so disassociated as well from my body for so long. And now I'm starting to have this feeling, and this is the biggest gift. The love. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like love, that heart opening, love for yourself, love for
Yeah.
yeah.
And the shedding of the fears, and then realizing like that's another huge gift, even though, I'm like, oh, we don't want to look at the fear and but to shed that stuff, even though to go through that shedding process is so hard, to let go of those fears, that's
Mm.
and to not have those things, those old stories, the traumas, what people did, and to start to be able to like remove yourself from those situations as well
Mm.
without any obligation. Just like that doesn't feel good. So I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
these are
Yes.
the biggest gifts and they've been hard earned, but
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like when we
Yeah.
talk about losing things and the grief and like that grief is valid, and it's real, but then I feel like it takes you to somewhere much, much more aligned, much bigger, much more loving. And it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. It takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And how has it shifted your outer life? So here you are in Shanghai, and I believe you're working in the fashion industry, or you're kind of working and kind of on the couch all day. Yeah. And then you left China at lockdown or COVID. Then how did your outer life start to change? And what was the process in that? What was the connection between the inner process and the outer life?
Yeah, so yeah, as I was working as a fashion stylist in Shanghai, and as went through this process, I really started to, well, first you just see the world as it is. And I remember like the veil was lifted and you just see the illusion of things, and how we're programmed and pulled into certain things. And, I still love beauty, I still love beautiful things, but it's interesting because I've gone through these distinct phases of like rejecting the material world. It was just, this is it just didn't feel good to me. And so
Oh.
that was quite a contrast working in the fashion industry that's so materialistic and, superficial in a way. But I had to keep going. But I actually turned down jobs because I'm like, this does not align. But then of course you need to make money. So I was like, I need to make money. And this was quite hard for me. And then, so stepping away from that, and then starting to do my energy work and shamanic journey and kind of delving into that kind of thing. And I suppose, yeah, outer world, and I'm still in the process of aligning that, but it's just really the people that I surround myself with and like what I will
Mm.
not tolerate, um, in my life and the energies that I will and will not tolerate. I think that's been the most significant thing, and being able to step away from that and not feel guilty
Mm.
about it or obliged. And it's still a work of
Mm.
business, but it's so much easier for me now. And so maybe, my circles are smaller, but whoever I have around me, I really like. And then,
Mm.
and yeah, just seeking people that really have my back. And if I need to be on my own, it's hard. I'm not gonna, I think too often we hear the sugarcoating, oh, it's okay to be in solitude. No, actually it's quite difficult actually. It's quite hard. It's lonely, you know? It's lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We need people.
we do.
We need
Yeah. So I'd say I'm
communities.
still in
Mm.
this process of going through things, but even, like relationships that I would have had before, which were not serving at all. Now it's just a no. Like the boundaries are really clear. And so what I'm drawn to is that's starting to look really different too. So it's really just seeing, the energetics underneath everything as to why you would make decisions, as to why you would go into certain dynamics and stay there.
Mm.
And so that's really shifting. Yeah.
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 Does it feel like, because I know for me it feels like I'm constantly being led. I'm not doing the doing anymore. And even if I think I am, I realize I'm not. And I'm sometimes to the if I ever resist the direction life is pushing me and it's quite a miserable experience, I often feel like my life is a series of choiceless choices. And it's like, I'm going, no, don't make me do that. And then it's like,
You got to do it.
okay, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that really resonates. That absolutely
yeah.
100% resonates with me. in terms of where I've lived, in terms of who I've had to interact with, whether it's been a positive result or not, it's like, not, you're going to go there, you're going to experience that. Yeah, I really, that's, yeah, if you push against it, it's going to come
Mhm.
more, more,
Yeah.
more of a ricochet. So
Yeah.
yeah, that really, I 100% agree. Mm.
Yeah. And and I feel like for me, I speak about this with my own mentor really is this idea that, or I recognize that it's taken me, I had an initial moment. I mean, there were a series of moments, but I had a particular moment where I felt the peace drop in, the wellness drop in. It was the end of the most hectic, really somatic physiological activations, if you will. But from that point of wellness, it's not been like unicorns and rainbows, right? There has been a ground of wellness that I hadn't felt or experienced previous to my life and a lot of other changes, which I won't go into. But um, there's been a real period of like consolidation. And the biggest challenge it has been not fighting, not fighting the feeling that I'm being led and I don't have a lot of choices in the matter. It's just learning that I shouldn't push and sort of the surrender part, like surrendering more deeply every time, I'm going to surrender even more. I'm going to surrender even more.
So huge.
Yeah.
It's
It's so huge.
and
Yeah.
it's interesting because I feel like it's portrayed in a way, oh, surrender, and then you've arrived at this point. It is a constant process of surrender.
Yeah.
Where you feel like you've reached the point, oh, I'm good. I understand this how to surrender. And then you go through something else and you're forced to do it again and again, and the trust again and again.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not like you
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
It's it's interesting because I guess what really comes through, as you're speaking is the humility and you talk about the boot on the back of the neck. Like it really it really does create an experience of incredible humility. It's just the opposite of the specialness that some people have around consciousness experiences or spiritual experiences. It's for me, actually, it's just totally the opposite of that. It's just so humbling,
So
you know, um, so humbling. I can't imagine navigating this and ever feeling this sense of like, so amazing. It's it's just the opposite. It's like um leveling. It's leveling.
it's like, yeah, and I think it's
Yeah.
interesting to watch people talk about awakening experiences, and I just think I kind of wonder what experience they've gone through because I think you can clearly see from people who've really gone through the deep work, or if it's just, on kind of like the surface level, that's fine. That's their journey. But yeah, if you've really gone through the real work, yeah, you come out very humble. You come out very,
Yeah. Very. And I think for me, more of a sense of humor anyway, because like,
yeah, you have to,
just
right? It's just
you
you.
gotta
It's the
go.
truth.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's
it's just
interesting.
too crazy.
It's interesting you say that because also I think I had moments of friends. So as I said, I had a period of isolation, and then I came in contact with a woman who was also going through an awakening. And so, not a Kundalini awakening, but she was also going through an intense process. And so we would go to a coffee shop and kind of slump. We would slump in the chairs and we would just look at each other because we were so miserable and just laugh hysterically for no reason. And this was such a like good medicine, these little moments, they just keep you going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what is going on?
Yeah.
I don't know.
To know.
I really just slumped in the chair, just completely
Yeah.
confused.
It is, madness. And yet, it's nice to talk about it so transparently because I'm sure there are people watching who are like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds really familiar." And, you know, I can't talk to anyone about it. No one understands. The
Yeah.
people in my life think I'm crazy. They think I'm having a breakdown. And I guess it'd be helpful to hear how you would explain to someone how they might have faith that this is a process of, I guess, spiritual emergence rather than, a psychotic breakdown, a mental health event. And I know it's sometimes a fine line.
Mm.
Yeah. How would you explain that? I don't even know how I'd answer that same question, so I'm curious to hear how you would answer it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like, um, I think what's interesting is the environment that you're in, I think can really influence the experience that you have as to whether, I was in China. I was kind of removed from it all. And so I had the privilege of isolation in a way where I was not exposed to so
Mm.
many people. And so maybe that protected me in a way. And then also having these downloads and this guidance of you just got to go through this process and trust in that. Whereas I think if you are, surrounded by people who are judging your process, and I experienced that later, but at least I was strong enough within myself or centered to, it still hurt, but it was like, okay, that's your projection. So I think
Mm.
that can really influence it. But I think, yeah, just, if you can surrender into that, and realize, as you said, it is a spiritual emergence, actually you can find a lot of peace. And I think once you've tuned into that peaceful
Yeah.
space, it's like that knowing beyond what you think you
Mm.
should be doing or experiencing, like that's the sweet spot. And then you can rest in that. And maybe it's not always a constant, but I find like it's funny, even just saying that I just tuned into that little peaceful space, So it's really just breathing into
Mm.
finding that sweet spot. And then you feel okay in that moment. And
Mm.
that's what you trust, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if something is bringing you peace, how can that not be good for you?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Tune into the piece that's there underneath or behind the whatever the struggle is, whatever the pain is, whatever the activation is. Yeah, I have clients who are navigating it and, very differently. Someone who's really queasy all the time and sometimes just has these ways of queasiness and has to sit down and, you know, and then someone else who, has just a lot of past trauma coming up and a lot of activation and it's so different, but it is often really, really somatic. And I don't know if it's just me, I'm just seeing it more and more because of kind of the work I do, but it does feel like there is this clearing that happens through people and more people are experiencing it. And it's, I don't know, I find it so beautiful because it's just for me. And I think one of the reasons I started this podcast and one of the episodes for me it feels like an evolutionary imperative. It's a process, it's a natural process that everyone will go through to a larger or lesser degree, with varying degrees of intensity at some point in some life, because it feels like a natural thing. And it's the beauty of it is that it happens through you. You don't, it's not about, it's always helpful to have guides and mentors and groups, don't get me wrong, but even if you don't, and I think that's important to say because, the old way is that, to have these kind of spiritual experiences, we have to be part of a tradition and be very disciplined and follow rules and theology and have this kind of top-down experience and be supplicants and aspire, but actually it's something that could just happen when it's time for it to happen. And this is something really, I don't know, something really reassuring about that this is available.
Definitely. And I want to just say actually, you said something earlier, and I think when you're going through the process, it's not to fight against it, just accept it.
Mm.
Accept it. Particularly in the West, we battle so much against, we've got to put on this smiley face. And if we're going through trauma, we've got to like get through this
Yeah.
and we've got to get this result. Like,
Mm.
what if we just accept it? Then what? What if we stop
Mm.
fighting against it and just, okay, this is a part of me. I'm going to do what I can to kind of like support it without pushing it too much. But just accept it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like these difficult states, these uncomfortable states that we try to sweep away or we ignore, and it doesn't go anywhere. So what if I just sit with
Mm.
and okay, there you are. Okay. You know.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what if all those, I'm fond of pointing this out to people. What if all those symptoms that, are so easy to pathologize and they seem so terrible and they seem to be proof that there's something wrong. What if all those difficult symptoms are actually proof that there's something right happening?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's quite a mental shift, isn't it?
It's
So instead
huge.
of going, I'm crying, I have digestive issues, I'm having these energy activations, I'm just, what's happening? I'm dying. What if that can help you? I think that certainly helped me, that thought of, okay, I just have to, allow this to happen. That it's not a sign that there's something wrong. It's just something that's moving through me like a hurricane. But yeah.
Definitely. No, and that's huge because what you just said, and this is such an important thing to realize as well. Particularly my body was frozen, and so
Mm.
I was just containing everything and like, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and I would have these little like energetic, like these breakdowns now and again or go into depressions. And then I would bounce back and keep going without really addressing it, but it kept on happening. And so your body is trying to signal something. And then when that release happens, then your body can finally like start to let things go. And it does feel like something bad is happening, but that's often not the case. Actually, it's just things are being able, you feeling things, they're being released. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean anything
Mm.
really bad is going on. Actually, no, now the body is doing its job.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so important to have trust in the body. And oh gosh, we don't live in a world that supports us to have trust. And I'm certainly not saying that, you shouldn't go to the doctor. I think at one point I was overseas, I was so worried because I'd had, a month of basically, these digestive issues. I wanted to know, like, is there something wrong? Like, could it be some disease or something? So I did do that and no, there was nothing wrong. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't investigate these things, of
Sure.
course,
Sure.
but also to be open to maybe there isn't anything wrong, maybe there's something right. Maybe it is a clearing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And, imagine
Yeah.
if we'd grown up in an environment where this was understood and this was allowed and it was accepted. You weren't just given a pill just to suppress a symptom. It's like, okay, the
Mm,
going to tell me something. Okay, let's just let it do its job. Let's support it. How can we be compassionate towards it? Instead of like protect
mm.
ourselves or fix it, you know, just let it do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of work are you doing now, Natalie? Maybe you could share with us, how the this version of you that survived all of this and evolved along with it and is, yeah, in Portugal.
Yeah. So, you were asking a little bit earlier about gifts, and certainly some kind of like psychic gifts, I suppose, come online as they do for a lot of people that
Yeah.
do this work. And so, specifically for me, along the way, obviously, I studied many different modalities to figure myself out. But what I discovered was I have a particular talent for working with people who are kind of at points of transition, who are trying to, reach through a hidden block, reach through a barrier. And so I work as a catalyst essentially, which also goes really well with my human design channel. And so, yeah, helping people to remove blockages, to access, access hidden blockages so that they can move on to a more embodied state. And it's a pretty potent process actually, because
Mm.
it works in a few phases actually. Sometimes just by having a conversation with someone, they
Mm,
have a realization. So essentially, when I'm having conversation with someone, I can listen with my field. So I'm not really listening to the story. I'm listening to their field, like the resonance,
yeah.
and also the
Yeah.
in the story. And so I know when I need to ask them a question to take them in a certain direction.
Yes.
Answering that question and just realizing a certain truth. This in itself can be very I'm sure you know from your work as well, it can be very transformational. So just in that,
Mm,
release a blockage, and then they can start to shift in a different direction. And then if
mm.
deeper work, I do shamanic journeying, so really going into the subconscious, which I love this work so much. And then also a newer
Mm.
modality is working with the Phoenix radionics table. So it's quite a precise tool. I don't know if you've heard of radionics at all.
No, I think you mentioned it last time. I'll have to look it up. Radionics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a really remarkable tool. It's kind of like a divination table in a way, which I wouldn't have really worked with before, but it's really quite precise. So you do dowsing, you work with the pendulum, you ask very specific questions. And I think, before I worked in fashion, I worked as a chartered accountant. So I have this very structured background as well and
Yes.
logical. So I like it because it can really get down into things like past lives, external energies that are blocking you, which the
Mm.
shamanic journey work, you can address it to a degree and it can be very powerful. Um, and I also like to use it because you can empower yourself, right? You can call in guides. You can
Mhm.
to people are always quite surprised as to what is sitting in their subconscious and what can be navigated.
Ah,
With the Phoenix Radionics, you're working with prayer, you're working with ascended masters, etc. And I don't like to get too woo-woo about it, but it is what it is. You're working with frequency essentially at the end of the day.
is that in person or do you have to be on the table or how is
Uh,
that?
I can do it online, I can do it in person. It doesn't matter. It's all energetic. But yeah, it's
Cool.
asking really specific questions. So you ask the questions, you're tuning into the frequency of what's going on. So you're setting
Mm.
intention, tuning in that frequency. And then once, the questions have been answered, then working with some clearings and then working with some invocations or prayer, which is so beautiful. The words are wow.
Mm.
And winding that with the pendulum, tuning into the person's toroidal field and clearing out these things. And it's it's quite powerful and really beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. So I use these three different tools depending on where someone's at. Sometimes a conversation is enough. They realize the truth, this blockage is released, and they kind of have a sense of where to go, or I need to go a little deeper. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's so cool. I've never heard of that. I'll have to look it up. Well, we'll have all of your links in the show notes
yeah.
and, you know, um yeah, well, I feel like I could just keep talking about this experience forever, but yeah. Any any final advice for people who might be feeling like they recognize in your words or even my words something happening through them and they're at a stage of kind of like that, what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, I think well, one thing to recognize is we're in a very interesting stage in the world arena, and so I think a lot of people are
Mm.
awakening. And particularly, if you're in the West, perhaps you're not surrounded by people or in an environment that understands it. But, most importantly is to really like lean into the trust and the guidance that comes through for you, despite, whether it makes sense or not on a logical level, actually to remove the brain and the mind is quite advisable. But also to, as much as you can, stay grounded,
Mm.
surround yourself with stable points, just good people, look after the physical body. I think it's really to lean into the foundational basic stuff of just caring for yourself because it can be so much. Just like lean on the basics as much as possible. And yeah, just have great people around you. And if you can't, try and remove yourself from that, and really just insulate yourself, look after yourself as much as possible. That would be,
Beautiful.
yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, words that would have been very helpful for me too in those
Well, yeah,
times.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So I hope yeah, I'm hoping that if you're listening, yeah, you take this on board and also just feel normal because it's all
Yeah,
normal.
yeah, exactly. And really love yourself through the process, despite what anyone says or what you experience. Love yourself, and I think that's a huge part too. And I think this is what the process is really teaching us. You know, is to just to return to the love for yourself, whatever is,
Yeah.
and however it looks, and however messy and painful it is. Well, whatever, you know, love yourself.
Mm.
Yeah,
I love that. Thank you so much, Natalie. It's been such a gift to
thank
have this
you.
conversation. I really
Yeah, I really
appreciate it.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.